I think that what's a very relevant topic right now is empowerment, sovereignty, what we are, and where we're going. So one of the things that you say so many times is that we're advanced beings that have a self-regulatory system. And so, when you say that we're an advanced being, explain that, and in relation to what?
We just covered a lot of ground. You just asked a lot of questions. And the truth is that they're all related, and there can be no digression, because we are holistic beings living in a holistic universe, part of all that is. And that is the fallacy for the way that we try to approach so many of our problems, the fallacy that we are somehow separate from one another, separate from our world, and powerless victims of our environment. And I think one of the things that's happening right now, Danica, if you're going to have a global pandemic, it's good to have it in the age of the internet, because the internet has allowed us to stay connected, and it's allowed us to access information in ways that we never have in the past. And part of that access, I think, is the answer to the question that you just asked. So I'm going to begin the answer by simply saying there's a battle that is unfolding in our world right now on multiple levels, right in front of our eyes. We all know there's a battle for our thoughts. That's very obvious. The media is battling to inform and guide the way that we think about ourselves and our relationship to the world, and how we respond to the pandemic and the economy and race and all the other things that are up for us right now. There's that battle. But that battle is based upon a battle for our beliefs. And that battle is playing out in academia. It's playing out with what we teach our kids about who they are and the way that they solve the problems of the world that come to them from the time that they're very young. The battle for our beliefs. Where did we come from? Are we an accident of lucky biology, or is there some intentionality underlying our existence? I mean, that's a huge question. Is the universe dead and unconscious and inert, or is the universe alive and intelligent and connected? That battle is playing out. There's a battle for our bodies, and I think we're all getting that. What does it take to get healthy? What's it take to stay healthy? What do we have to give our babies within moments of when they emerge from the womb? When they come into this world, we are conditioned to think that they have to have something outside of themselves in order to survive. All those battles are playing out, but I want to tell you, they're all static. They're noise. And they're covering what I believe is the deepest battle of our time. Danica, it's a battle for our very humanness. Our very humanness is on the line right now, because for the first time in recorded human history, we have the technology that can steal our humanness from us in ways that some people aren't even aware of, and other societies and cultures are adopting very, very quickly. And I'm talking about computer chips implanted into the human brain, and chemicals injected into the body, and wires under the skin. And the problem with this technology that's moving so fast is that when we give our natural humanness away, when we give away our biological potential to technology, our body begins to atrophy with respect to those potentials. So if we're implanting chips in our brain, our neurons, we've all heard this before, use it or lose it. Biology, you hear this all the time. Our neurons begin to think they're not needed anymore, and so they stop producing. In one generation, the next generation, they become an appendage of something that used to be, and we're not using them anymore. And for the first time in 5,000 years of recorded human history, the technology has the power to forever change our species. And the question, and this, I'm laying the foundation to answer the question that you asked. The question is, and I would never tell anyone or try to convince or persuade anyone to or not to use the technology, but here's the key. The key is, how much of ourselves do we want to give away to the technology and lose forever? We can't answer that until we know who we are. And that brings us back to the very first question that you asked. And I got to tell you, it's where the scientific discoveries are coming so fast and furious in these obscure technical journals that very few people get to see. But they're based upon peer-reviewed science, and they're writing a new human story. And that new human story is what the COVID pandemic is pushing us to understand. So I'm going to stop right there and ask, does that make sense, first of all?
Of course it does.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we're beginning to understand, we have been conditioned for a couple of generations now to see the human body as a flawed organism. Carbon-based life in general, and the human body specifically, is somehow flawed. And because it is flawed, that we need to build things outside of us that will help us to become the best versions of ourselves, to become achieve our greatest potentials, whether it's athletics or whether it's mental or emotional capabilities, all of these things. So this is the path that technology is following very, very quickly. And what we're seeing is that the technology has advanced faster than the morality of how we apply it in our lives. And I'll just give you a perfect example of what I mean by that. A couple of years ago, scientific papers began describing the ability to edit the DNA of a fetus inside the womb of a living woman, just the way you would edit a document in a word processor on the computer. So on a word processor, you can add or delete words, you can highlight an entire paragraph, cut it, paste it somewhere else. We now have editors where the genes come up on the computer screen and you can highlight and delete and merge and remove and rearrange genes in the DNA of a living organism to optimize and perfect that organism while it's still in the womb, before it's ever born. And the question is, whose idea of what is optimum do we begin to use to do something like that? Well, this was all theory. They were doing it in the lab till 2018. In 2018, there was a Chinese scientist that very proudly said, holding the baby in his arms, "Here are our first gene-edited human babies." He had done in real life what had been done in the laboratory in theory and in tests. And the scientific community came down on him like a ton of bricks.
Really?
Because they said, wait a minute, just because we can doesn't mean that we should. And we see this time and time again with technology, where the technology advances. Just because we can implant a computer chip into the human brain that connects us with the hard drive of our computer with no wires, no keyboards, and allows us to download information, does that mean that we should? And we cannot answer those things, Danica, until we begin to understand who we are. So this is the way science works. The discoveries are pushing science to understand who we are. And what they are discovering is a mind blower. Because I'll just say it and then we can unpack it. What they're discovering, I'm going to say it like this. We have yet to discover any technology built outside of the human body that does not mimic what we already do in the cells and the neurons and the organs of our body, except we do it better. We are what is called a soft technology. So rather than thinking of a hard computer chip and wires and chemicals, we're talking about neurons and fluids, ion potentials moving across the membranes of cell walls and crystalline bone structure. And when we begin to understand what that means and the ability, our innate ability to self-regulate this technology, that's the mind blower. Because what it says is that, yeah, we can do these things in the technology, but the technology maybe is reminding us of who we are to push us in that evolutionary direction.